Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. I hope you're doing well. Hope all things are good with you, your family, with your podcast. I hope things are awesome, and you've enjoyed a good summer. I hope you've had some nice, wonderful times outside and with your family, and maybe a barbecue or a trip, a holiday, the beach, all that. We're getting into the fall season here in North America. Up here in Canada, it's already getting cold. It's like half of what the temperature was like 2 weeks ago. We're kind of getting into that season where we're going to buckle down into routine, get back into the swing of things, and maybe start a podcast, right? So this is a perfect time to do that. And you're in the perfect place to learn about podcasting. So I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for making a good decision and pressing play on the episode. The podcast grows because of you. So thank you for making this a priority and for being here. I really do appreciate it. A couple little housekeeping things at the beginning before we jump into today. Just a reminder that our meetups are back on and available through howtopodcast.ca, where we get together on Saturday mornings around 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. For now, we're going to add more times in the future, but we get together with other podcasters from around the world and talk podcasting, encourage and build each other up, and support each other. And it's free. It doesn't cost you a penny. So if you're interested and you want to meet other podcasters and get away from just listening to a podcast and actually interacting with other podcasters, even if you haven't started a podcast, you can come and be a part of our meetup and ask questions, learn, take notes, meet people, connect with people, build relationships, get on a podcast, find a guest for a podcast. Come and meet these great podcasters. They show up on a regular basis and they're here for you. So if you're interested, our meetup.com is the home for this. Again, it's free for you to join in on the meetings. They're held over Zoom, and you can find all the information at howtopodcast.ca. So here's my conundrum. Here's a word for you, conundrum. It's when I go on social media, whether it's YouTube Shorts or YouTube proper or Instagram, TikTok, what I'm noticing is a sea of sameness. Okay. Now, in this, I mean like content creator to content creator to content creator. There's a look, there's a feel, there's a image, a video, an experience that is duplicated across many creators. Back in the day, it was audiograms, which was just an image with this waveform moving thing across the bottom of the image that signified that something was happening. And those have fallen out of favor. They're not as popular as they once were. If you're spending a lot of money on audiograms, I'm probably not getting a big return on investment. Just saying, you might want to take a look at the numbers and see if it warrants the price you're paying to have it done for you or the tools you're using to make those. And just see if you're getting a good ROI on that. Best way to find out if you're spending good money is to talk to your audience and ask them, hey, these audiograms that I do and cost me $20 a week, are you guys even looking at these? And if you get an overwhelming sense of no, then maybe you can lose that and reinvest that $20 back into your podcast in a different form. So just think about that. Audiograms, not really big sold on that right now. They were a fad. They've pretty much gone. So think about that. Maybe reinvest that money. But one other thing I'm seeing now is I'm seeing like all these video templates where you see the person, if it's a 2-person interview, there'll be a person up top and a person down below on your screen when you're looking at your phone. And then somewhere on the screen are the words that change color as people talk. And they all kind of seem similar as you jump from one content creator to the next. There's several tools being used for this. And there's different pricing, and some are free, some have limited use, some are paid. But the one thing I'm seeing is they're pumping out very similar look, feel, and content into the world. And many people are doing this in bulk. They're doing many clips for their podcast, for example, and sending it out. This is a flood of content because there are people in the space as podcast gurus who are going to tell you you have to post X number of posts in a period of time. You have to do this, 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 and this. These are have-tos, by the way. You have to do all these things on social media. Now, I know there's people who I interact with who social media is just not a thing for them. And to be quite clear with you at the very beginning here, you really don't have to. Remember, this is your have to. HAVE space TO. Have to have social media. You do not have to do anything for your podcast except podcast. You don't have to do any of these things. Will they help? Possibly. Will they help you get in front of more people? Sure. Yeah. That's kind of what social media is. But just remember that social media is more of a tool than a job. And I feel like people have taken a tool of social media and turned it into a position where you have a team, you have responsibilities, you got to feed the machine, right? Think of a factory worker back in the day, or whatever, feeding the furnace to keep the thing running and all that, right? That's what we're kind of doing with social media. You gotta, if you take your foot off the gas for a day, you slide down the rankings, you lose all this. Your stuff is being shown to a fraction of people until you pay for it to get in front of more people. That's I'm not signing up for that. So when you look at my social media, it's sparse. I know that. And I get emails all the time from all these services, air quote, who say, wow, you could be doing much better on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all these places. And they're like, your content's great, but you are really low ranking. You know what I'm not low ranking in? Connection with my audience. And having probably over 300 SpeakPipe messages since we started our SpeakPipe link, being in this is a good number, in the top 1%, not of podcasts, no, the top 1% of Buy Me a Coffee donations. That's because of you. People donating to the show and being a part of this, and then for me to be able to take that money that you give to the show and then redistribute it out to other podcasters. If you started Buy Me a Coffee, let me know. I'd like to be your first donation. Those are things that tell me that despite the emails from these services that are trying to sell me on buying their service and hiring them, that I really don't need social media to the extent that it's being hyped up into the world. Keep in mind, and I've talked about this in the past, the one person that wants you to buy a vacuum is a vacuum salesperson. Let that sink in for a second. The one person that wants you to buy a vacuum is a vacuum sales person, because it's linked, right? That's how they make their money. The one group that wants you to do video are usually the video producers, the tools that make videos, the hosts that host videos, the YouTubes, all those things. The people that want you to do really well on Instagram have a tie to Instagram. There's tied to the thing that they're promoting. Okay? So when somebody's promoting a microphone or a hosting site or a something or other or a tool or a program or a whatever, they have some sort of affiliation or kickback or incentive to put that in front of you as content. So I'm hearing of online places where you can record your podcast, and I'm hearing them as commercials, and they sound like the host is talking to you. But if you listen to a various podcasts around the same type of content, you will hear the basic same script read in different ways, but the same message, and it's a commercial. It sounds like the host is talking to you about this great, amazing tool that they use to record their podcast, but it's just a commercial reworded into the words and the tone of the host of the show. So they're making money off a commercial that doesn't actually feel like a commercial until you hear 10 other people on 10 other shows say the same thing. And you're like, oh, I get it. That's a commercial. So what I'm seeing when I look at video on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all those places, is it feels like I'm just going from content creator to content creator, and it looks and feels the same. It feels like to me a watering down of content and a trap of sameness, where you don't even realize you've gone from one content creator to the other because everything looks the same. Everything feels the same. It feels really inauthentic, very mass-produced. Think of the Henry Ford days building those cars, and they're all black. You can have any color you want as long as it's black. So that's it. That's it. Every car is black. So when I look at content creation now, it's like the Henry Ford version of content creation where everything is exactly the same. And it's great. It's all available to you, but it has to be this way. And when you go from content creator to content creator, I find myself scrolling through this stuff and it's not connecting with me when it was new, because now it's all the same. It's like if you went to the ice cream section at your local grocery store or convenience store, and you walked up to where all the ice cream is, and instead of seeing, 50 flavors of different types of ice cream, it's all vanilla. I like vanilla ice cream, but I also like Rocky Road. We call Moose Tracks. I like Tiger Tail. Oh, it's a weird one. Mint chocolate chip. These are all different types of ice cream, and they're unique. They stand out. They're different than the other one, and it's called choice. But what I'm noticing in content creation is it's a lot of vanilla. Everything's the same, and it makes me question whether we're on the right path as content creators and how to escape this trap of your content looking like and sounding like everyone else in the space. And then how do you stand out when everybody seems the same? It's that whole thing when your mother told you if your friends did something stupid, like jumped off a bridge into the river, would you do it just because your friends did it? Well, it seems like we're having that happen. We have a lot of people just blindly following whoever tells you this is how you do it. And you, again, have to do it this way, that people blindly just sign up, pay money. And again, I keep going back to this, but the idea that you can pay to become a guru in podcasting by several easy payments, and $2,000 later, you can be an expert in podcasting, even if you've never podcasted before and you don't even have a podcast. You can be an expert podcast guru, just pay for my course. It's exhausting, as Taylor Swift would say. It's exhausting. The idea that we're creating all this sameness just makes me wonder if we're serving our audience in a good way, in a lasting way, in a sustainable way, and if we're really connecting with our audience or not. Because for the most part, I think we're not. I don't think we're doing a great job of building a relationship with our audience. So again, giving your audience a link to your latest episode for your podcast and saying, hey, come listen, episode 16's out. Great. What's episode 16 about? Why should I care that you have episode 16? What does that do for me as a viewer of your content on fill in the blank social media page? Why do I care that it's episode 16? And instead of just shouting out the fact that you have a new episode, remember, if I've already signed up and followed your show on my listening app, I already know that episode 16's out. And I don't need a reminder from you to go listen, because it's already a reminder on my phone, because I follow your show, because you asked me to follow your show and subscribe or follow or whatever it is. So I already know that your episode's out. I don't need you to remind me. I'm probably already listening to it. That's how follows and subscribes work. So when I look at all the things that are happening in podcasting specific to promoting your show and being active on social, I just want to help us to escape the trap of sameness. That vanilla ice cream where you can have any type of ice cream you want, any flavor except it just has to be vanilla. You can have any Ford car, but it has to be black. That's it. You don't have a choice. You don't have any options. Everything has to be the same. I think there's a unique opportunity for us as content creators, podcasters, to do something different than everyone else, which will inherently make you stand out in a world where nobody stands out now because we're all doing the same. Here's a great example. The question I get quite often is, Dave, what is the best day and time to release my podcast episode to the world? The best day and the best time. Now, if we could get everybody in one room and have them agree on something, I think there's a lot of other things we need to agree on before we agree on the best day and time to release a podcast, just judging by how the news is in the world. But in podcasting terms, if we could get every podcaster to sit down and agree that, say, for example, Monday morning at 6 a.m. is the best time to release your podcast. Okay, well, did you know that Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is different than the time zone in Australia? So all of our Australian friends, you're out of luck. Right? So the world has time zones, everyone, just so you understand. So whatever bubble that you live in, you realize that the world is much bigger than you're part of it. So when you try to agree on a time and date to release your podcast, there's a global audience who have all different time zones, and your time, it doesn't really matter, right? To the big world out there. And if we could all agree that a certain date and time, day of the week and time of the day is the best, and everybody moved to that day and time and agreed on that, guess what just happened? The best day and time of the week to release your podcast became the most crowded time of the week to release a podcast, and therefore no longer is the best time and day of the week to release your podcast. So we've inherently just destroyed the potential to have a best time and day because everybody's doing it on the same time and day. It's no longer the best time and day. That's the problem. Is your podcast is unique. It doesn't have to fit into somebody's opinion about how to podcast based on their big scheme. And that's what I like to share with you on this show, is that it isn't about the best anything. And there's no have-tos in podcasting. So there's a few things I want to talk about, how we can beat the sameness and the watered down vanilla content that's happening in podcasting and podcast promotion. And I'm going to give you a few things to think about. Okay? So the first thing, we got to embrace our authenticity. There's one thing that ChatGPT, Perplexity.ai, Google, all these things. There's one thing that can't replace in your content. The one thing that's unique is you. And your outlook on life, your life experiences, the books you've read, the people you've met, the school you've gone to, the family you've been brought up, the city, the town, the country, the place where you grew up, the time when you scraped your knee when you were 7, the first time you rode a bicycle, your first love, your first car, graduating, your first kid, your first job. All of those things combined into one package is you. And nobody else has had the same path that you've had. It's like your fingertips, right? Your fingerprints, they're all different. And how that's possible, I have no idea. But everybody's fingerprints are different. That's why they fingerprint you if you do something wrong. That's your unique ID. So your fingerprint for your podcast is your authenticity. Your unique voice, your perspective, that's you. And nobody else can do that. You could have a stunt double who does your really difficult things like falling from a building. Those are advisable because you don't want to hurt yourself. Stunt doubles kind of look like you, but they're not really you. Your unique voice, your perspective, that's you. By sharing personal stories and experiences and the insights that you've learned over your lifetime, that's one thing you can offer that no one else and no AI tool can do or duplicate. And your authenticity resonates with your audience because it's different than all of the AI tools' output and all of the sameness that's happening in the space. So if you want to battle the sameness, don't be vanilla ice cream. Don't be a black Ford vehicle. Be something different. Be fancy. Be different. Be unique. Be a blend of different things. And be you. Embrace your authenticity and you will stand out from the crowd. And that's what we need in podcasting. We need in content creation. We need you to stand out from all of the sameness that's happening on the platforms. The next one is to challenge your conventions. Challenging both your conventions and the conventions of content creation and as a whole. So don't be afraid to go against the popular trends. We all seem to gravitate like a bug to a bug zapper. All of the things that are really popular and trendy and happening. Again, go back to audiograms was trendy. The videos that are out now on social media, on TikTok and Instagram, they all look the same. They're trends. And you need to challenge these things. And challenge all the wildly held beliefs in your niche, in podcasting, in content creation, writing your books. There's a lot of widely held beliefs that really are just a vaguely shrouded trend that's going to go away in a few months. Offering contrarian viewpoints or exploring unconventional ideas can spark interest and discussion. Like what I'm doing right here, right now with you. Instead of getting on here and telling you that you need to post 7 pieces of content when you release your podcast episode over the period of 72 hours, like you're going to hear on many guru podcasts about podcasting, how about maybe posting 1 piece of content and then spending time on your podcast and your audience and your community and your listeners and your guests and on becoming better as a podcaster instead of feeding the machine. Challenge. And when you do your podcast, if everybody, again, is telling you to do one thing, what if you thought about doing it the opposite way? Not just to be a rebel, but maybe there's something people are missing and you could be the one to uncover it. So challenge the conventions, the popular, the norms, the trends, and go somewhere different with your content. And the next is to experiment with formats. Have you ever tried something new? That little bubbly feeling in your stomach that, oh my gosh, I'm going on a roller coaster for the first time. What was your first roller coaster experience? My sister, my younger sister, she's 5 years younger than me, she took me to a theme park and made me go on roller coasters, which I hated the idea of. But then I quickly loved it. When I go on a roller coaster, I'm the one who loses his breath as you come over the first hill and you drop for the first time. Everything in me just comes up to my throat and closes it off, and I can't even yell. It's like this whole thing just happens, and then as the roller coaster hits the bottom and starts coming back up again, it's like I get my voice back, and there I can yell again. It's the first time on a roller coaster. Wow. Like, what an experiment. That was fun and thrilling and exciting and freaked me out because I had no control and no idea what was going to happen. When was the last time you did something different with your format, with your content, with what you put in the world, where you get that nervous feeling like this could really blow up in my face? Or this could be wildly successful and I've never tried this because I'm too nervous to try something new. What if you just broke away from some of the standard content formats? Like, I have to do seasons. No, you don't. I have to be an interview podcast. No, you don't. I have to be a solo podcast. No, you don't. I have to do a 1-hour show. No. I have to do a daily show. No, you don't. I have to do, right? See all those have-tos that you just heard me say? They're all absurd and overhyped and not realistic. There are no have-tos in podcast. There isn't. So try doing something different. Maybe some more interactive content instead of just being a solo episode where you just talk to the mic. Bring in your audience. What about an immersive storytelling where you bring in kind of sound beds and music and effects and do something different? You take your podcast outside and record it on a walk. You record in the environment of the conference hall. You do something different that's just different than what you would normally do. Try some unique visual styles, and maybe what you do is your album artwork, or you do a video episode of your show. That's possible. And then some unexpected collaborations where you work with somebody that maybe is the complete opposite of you. So politics is not my thing. I'm not really into that stuff. But if you believe one thing, why not have a conversation with somebody who's the direct opposite of you? That would be fun. That's called a conversation, which we used to have before we hated each other. So maybe bring somebody that's completely opposite of you, and instead of throwing rocks at each other and being angry with each other for how dare you believe that? No, maybe just have a conversation and maybe you can learn something about each other. That would be unique. Wouldn't that be unique? Instead of having two people who agree on everything. Hey, Dave, what's your favorite ice cream? Vanilla. What's your favorite ice cream? Steve? Vanilla. Great podcast, everyone. Let's go home. That gives me nothing, right? I hate vanilla ice cream. I only like this chocolate chip. Oh, chocolate chip ice cream is disgusting, right? And now we have a debate and we're still friends. And at the end, we go for ice cream to celebrate. Win-win-win for everyone. Try experimenting with your formats. Are you stuck in a rut? Are you stuck in this thing where you're like, I just got to do the thing because I do the thing and I've always done the thing and I didn't know I could do something other than the thing. So let's do something different than the thing. On the next episode, what can you do? And I'd love to hear what you tried and did it work or not? Howtopodcast.ca. How about deep dive into more niche topics? Now I know my American friends are going to say, what is a niche? It's a niche. Okay, just to clarify for everyone, niche is spelled N-I-C-H-E and niche is spelled N-I-T-C-H. Just so you know. So if you want to use the word niche to my wonderful American friends, then maybe we need to change the spelling of niche to niche. Just think about that. That's fun. And for all those not in the U.S., you're smiling. I know that. That's good. We still love you, our American friends. Without you, we'd probably all be in trouble. So thank you for being you. Maybe deep dive into some niche topics that you might not normally do. Instead of covering broad, surface-level topics about general things, about general ideas, maybe focus on exploring more specific niches in greater depth. Do your research. Like actually get into the topic and come up with stuff. Become the go-to expert in your space for your podcast on a highly specialized subject that a lot of other podcasters just overlook. And you become the go-to person. You'll see podcasters who are go-to people featured on the news. And they'll interview a podcaster and get their thoughts and feedback about fill in the blank. A topic that's in the news, and they're looking for an expert to come on and share their thoughts. You can be the voice of a community and a topic, something that's very meaningful, and you could be that go-to person for the news. Perfect. Because you went deeper than just the surface level overview that many people do these days. And you can sense it. Go deeper. I heard one person say, take the stairs. And I like that. Instead of the elevator, a lot of people on the elevator today in content creation, it's simple, it's easy, get you there fast, very little effort. The stairs take more effort, especially if you have to go multiple floors. But the workout and the effect and your health, and it's more effort, is worth it in the long term, I think. So take the stairs with your content. Get off the elevator. Go deep with that in your podcast. As well, prioritize quality instead of quantity. So if I podcast every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, I'll be a success. Well, that's if your podcast is actually worth listening to. I could podcast every day, like 5-minute podcast episode every day, and give zero value and have zero listeners because I'm not giving you anything. I want to check a checkbox off on my list that I did the thing. I did a daily episode. Why am I not growing? Well, you didn't give us anything to listen to. And like, there's no reason to listen to your show, even though it's daily. So instead of doing quantity, like how many episodes should I do? How about doing the best episode you can and do it as often as you can? How about that? Does that seem more reasonable than having to do a number? Like, what if you don't have time to do an episode a week, 52 weeks a year? What if you don't have to be tied to that? And instead you do quality episodes when you can. Is there any shame in that? No. Is it easier to grow on a more consistent basis? Probably. A great idea. I back that up. But if you can't do that, does that mean you should never do it? No. 1 episode a year is better than 0 episodes, correct? So do what you can, but prioritize the quality of each and every episode over how many you do. There's no award for the most podcast episodes of crap compared to the best episode as often as you can do it. You understand? That's how that works? Focus on thorough research, thoughtful analysis, and polished presentation. You are kind of an actor as a podcaster. You are kind of putting on a show. So show up, do your homework, read your lines, understand your topic, and give your best to your audience. And if you're not feeling it, don't record. Go outside, play with your kids, walk the dog, and go have a nap. You don't have to record a podcast because it's Monday. You have to record a podcast because you have something to say and you can't wait to tell the world. That's when you have to podcast. Prioritize your quality over your quantity. And then the next thing I would suggest, if you want to stand out in a world of vanilla and black Ford cars, is to develop your own distinct style. Simply by cultivating a recognizable aesthetic to your podcast, to the look and feel of your show and what it sounds like, you can set a tone that sets your content apart visually, audibly, and the whole concept for your show can be different than anybody else, even if somebody's doing something similar to what you're doing. So, what makes your podcast unique? It's not about being good or great, but what makes it unique? Do you have a signature phrase or segment or thing on your show that not everybody does or people don't do to the extent that you do? Example for my show is the question of the month. Other podcasts do this. Even podcasts about podcasting have questions of the month. So why, Dave, would you have a question of the month? Well, my unique take on it is I'm really not that interested in your answer. You're like, well, that's rude. But no, it's more about you promoting your podcast. I want people to find out about you. That's it. I just want people to press play, hear about your show, and go, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that podcast existed. I love the idea of that show. I'm going to go listen to that person's podcast. Simply by answering the question of the month, you get to promote your show. And everybody that I talk to says I'm having a problem finding listeners. Well, respond to the question of the month. Tell us about your show, answer the question, and share your thoughts and feedback. You become part of the podcast. People find out about your show. People come listen. Like, that's how it works. And that's why that's there. Again, other people do a question of the month for different reasons. I do it to promote you, not me, to promote you. So come up with those signature phrases or segments for your show, and then be consistent with the theme of your show, the look and feel of your show. I've had people say they love the music in the intro of the podcast and the outro, and they feel so warm and relaxed and not so like salesy and Sunday, 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 yeah. No, it's not like that. It's just relaxed, kind of inviting. And they're like, I really liked the music. I'm like, well, I hope you like more than just the music, but thanks. Develop your own distinct style that makes you stand out. Again, stand in front of the ice cream display at the store, hundreds of different things to pick from. And if they all look the same, how do you choose? You look for that one thing that stands out, and you need to be that as a podcaster. We talk about this a lot as well to help you stand out against all of the things going on in the podcast space and content creation is how you engage with your audience. How are you, as a podcaster, fostering a genuine connection with your audience? What are you doing? Are you responding to comments on your Spotify or your reviews on Apple or in your DMs or on your Instagram or your posts and all that? Are you responding when people leave you a comment? Are you doing like Q&As? Again, question of the month. Are you incorporating audience feedback? Again, question of the month. SpeakPipe, right? How are you engaging with your audience? How about you buy me a coffee so people can donate to the show? We have that here as well. You can see that on my howtopodcast.ca website. Those are all engagement pieces. People saying thank you through a coffee donation of $5. That's like nothing to many of us to do a $5 donation, but to the host of the show, it's life. It's life to see that email come into your inbox and go, wow, somebody actually found value in my show enough to the point where they said thank you. And when you listen to people in the space, they'll tell you between 1% to 3% of your audience will ever respond to anything you ask of them to do. From leaving a message, leaving a comment, buying a coffee, leaving a SpeakPipe, 1% to 3% of your audience. So you have 100 listeners, you can count on 1, 2, or 3 people responding. And the rest will be silent. There's people who listen to this show, I've never heard from you ever before. I love you and I'm thankful that you're here. But I've never heard from you. I've never heard your voice. I've never seen an email. And I know that's going to happen. As a listener of podcasts, I don't respond to every podcaster that I listen to. I don't do it. And I'm a host of a podcast. I'm a host of 8 podcasts. And I still don't do it for everyone. So I get it. It doesn't just happen. It takes effort. But if you want to engage with your audience, you need to give them a way to do so. So SpeakPipe, buy me a coffee, emails, DMs, a website for your show that's not, that you own. Okay, I won't go off on that again. But you need to have a way for people to reach out to you. What are you doing and how are you doing it? And are you doing it well? Engage with your audience. The other thing you can do is you can cross-pollinate your ideas. I'm not a big fan of bees or wasps. I find them to be like the ninjas of insects. I really don't like wasps. But bees, I don't like the idea that they can sting you. I got stung once when I was a kid riding my bike and ran right into a fence. So I hurt myself on the fence and I had a bee sting in my neck. So bad day for Dave. But the whole idea about cross-pollinating your ideas is to draw inspiration from a bunch of different things and incorporate them into your podcast. So you're taking an idea from something unrelated to your podcast and bringing it into your show, like being stung by a bee and hitting a fence. Connecting seemingly unrelated ideas that can lead to fresh perspectives and a learning opportunity is great for your audience, especially if it's framed in a story. You're thinking of a bee stinging Dave and Dave riding into a fence when I was in grade 7. You're thinking of that right now. You're seeing me on my banana seat bike and my bell-bottom pants and their polyester shirt and wiping out into a fence. You're seeing that right now, I can tell. And yes, it was a paisley shirt with big collars, white collars, and I had bell-bottom pants. I couldn't see my shoes. Okay, all right, visual, right? Okay, and the bike was purple. Of course it was purple. And the seat, white. So there you go. You want to cross-pollinate ideas, bring them into your show so that people can connect with you and build a visual around what you're saying, especially in an audio format as such, as we're doing today. Bring in ideas from a variety of sources to feed your podcast and give context, life, and visuals to what you're saying. Another thing we can do, focus on evergreen value. Like we said before, you can have a daily episode of a podcast, 5-minute episodes, 365 days a year, and give crap value to your audience that means nothing to them and they don't never come back. They listen to one episode and go, what is this? There's no point to this. I have no idea why this person is even podcasting. They're not here to do anything but just talk. So, focus on evergreen value. You need to create podcasts that live on past its expiry date. Now, if you're doing a podcast about local news or sports or something that's in a moment in time and then everybody moves on, evergreen's going to be a little harder for you. But for the majority of us that do podcasts that are not bound by an event and a time, we can create content that lives on into the future. Years from now, people will come and find your show, press play, and listen to episode 3 from 4 years ago. For the first time, they'll press play. It happens for me all the time on my shows, and I love that. So the value has to be there into the future, and that's called evergreen content. So instead of chasing all these fleeting trends, maybe create content with lasting value and develop your resources and guides and a series of episodes and topics that live on into the future. That's going to bring you listeners into the future, and they'll go back in your catalog and fall in love with you. So focus on things that bring value into the future, not just in the moment. And maybe the last thing and this has come up in talks often, even as recent as our meetup, but it's to embrace the imperfection of what you do. Many of us struggle with perfectionism. We want to put the best thing possible out there in the world. There's going to be people who tell you have to be perfect to be a podcaster, and they are what I call wrong. Don't be afraid to show your vulnerability, to share your work in progress. I love seeing somebody's work in progress. It's messy. There's words all over the page, things crossed out, scribbled out, big X's, all of that. When you handed in your assignments and your essays and the teacher handed it back to you and all that dreaded red marker, red pen, comments everywhere, circled, highlighted, crossed off, comments in the columns, you're like, oh Lord, wow, talk about ripping apart my work. This work in progress is a sign of progress. And don't be afraid to show that to people, that episode 1 is never going to be as good as episode 100. It's impossible. You're going to get better at something the more you do this. I'm better at driving my car after 30, 40 years than I was the day I got the keys for the first time. It's natural. It just becomes something for you. So embrace the imperfection of what you do. Don't hide it. Don't pretend to be perfect. Don't pretend to not have struggles. Be you. Tell people, I'm really struggling today. I didn't want to record this podcast, but I'm here because I wanted to serve you. And it might not be perfect, but I'm doing my best. Audience often appreciate seeing the human side of creators and the creative process. And what's happening in social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, is we're showing everybody our best, our polished, our perfect. And it's a battle of perfection in content creation right now. And it's a battle of perfection in podcasting, because the big podcasters look down on the little podcasters. The people with money look down on the people without money. The people who can afford the fancy camera look down on the people who don't do video. The people who have expensive audio program editing software look down on the free service. The people who use expensive recording online programs look down on the Zoom recorders. People who record on Zoom because it's not professional enough. And there's this divide. I want you to embrace the imperfection of what you do and don't let it stop you from moving forward. Because the more you do it and the more you get feedback, the better and the faster you'll grow at what you do. By going through these things, by doing these different aspects, I think you're going to go from being a vanilla content creator into more of a flavored, unique, different, and special creator of content, whether that's podcasting or books or social media. We need to embrace our authenticity. We've got to challenge the conventions of what's trendy. If we're going to experiment with our formats and try something new that we've never done before, we're going to deep dive into the topics and become that expert in the field, in the subject matter. We're going to prioritize our quality over the quantity of what we do. We're going to develop a very distinct style that stands out and is different from everybody else. We're going to engage with our audience in a new way, in an increased way. We're going to cross-pollinate our ideas without getting stung. We're going to focus on evergreen value, and we're going to embrace our imperfection. And by doing these things, I think we're going to show up to the world in a new way that's going to make you stand out when you look at all of those videos that look the same, when you listen to all of this AI-generated information that's out there in the world that feels so similar. It's never been easier to create a podcast with all of these great tools that are out there, but it's becoming more and more difficult to create a unique podcast, a unique voice, a unique perspective. And if you want your podcast to stand out, don't copy all the trends. Go against the trends. Be counter to the trends. And that's where you're going to stand out because you're different from everybody else. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you're different. And I'd love for you to share that with me at howtopodcast.ca. Remember, the goal is not just to be different for the sake of being different, but to offer genuine value in a way that only you can do. Because you're the only you. And there's nobody, not even any AI tool out there that can do what you can do. You're the only you. And we need more of you. So start your podcast. Continue with your podcast. And if you need help with your show, as always, in the show notes, there's a link to my calendar and it's just you and me. It's the only place to get that link is in the show notes. And I'd love to have time with you. It's free. You can ask me anything about podcasting. We can talk about your show. Ask me anything. And I'd love to meet with you and chat. It's there for you anytime you want. Into the future, years from now, I'd still love to talk to you. At howtopodcast.ca is all of the information for me and the show. But again, check those show notes and click the link and come and see me. Let's chat. I'd love to meet you. Thanks for listening. And let's go create some new flavors of ice cream. Right? Why not? Take care. Be creative. Talk soon. Hey, thanks for being here at the end of the podcast. This is just for you because you're still here. Thank you for your support for the podcast. Thank you for listening to the show, sharing it with other podcasters. Maybe somebody you know is thinking about starting a show. I would love for you to say, hey, wait. You should go check out the How to Podcast series. It's got everything you need. And Dave as well is included. You get one free Dave with the How to Podcast series. I'm included with it. So kind of a bundle thing you get. To that point, mentioning it in the podcast, definitely want to remind you here at the end, there's a link in the show notes. Starting it this summer, I'm working through this. It's a way for us, you and I, to have a conversation around podcasting. I want to help you. And I've been doing this for people who listen to the show now for almost 3 years. And I just haven't been promoting it as a thing. So I'm now promoting it as a thing. I want to spend time with you. I kind of would love to hear your voice. We're going to jump on Zoom together. We're going to talk about your podcast. You get time one-on-one with me, 30 minutes in my calendar, completely free, no strings attached. You don't have to buy a blender or a vacuum or none of that stuff. No. Just us. I just like to help you. And whether you're thinking about starting a show or you have a show, you want to grow your show, whatever it is, I'd love to meet you, talk about your struggles, your questions, work together. And I am eventually developing this into more of a coaching program for podcasters. But I'm starting with my best friends first, for free. So if you're interested, you listen to the show, and I appreciate you. Link in the show notes. Let's get together and talk podcasting, okay? You and me. Let's talk. Let's talk soon. See you. Thanks.